Welcome to the Lessons for Sports podcast. I'm your host, Wayne Partello. Each episode, I have a conversation with somebody from around the world of sports, whether they be a player or a coach, a front office employee, or maybe just somebody who played a game as a kid, who learned a lesson that they've applied to finding success and happiness. And this week is no different. I'm going to introduce you to a guy named Cody Decker. Cody was a standout college athlete who got drafted to play baseball and worked for years to get that call that so many wait for, come to the big leagues. And that was during my time at the Padres. And Cody tells that whole story and what happened when he got there and all the moments that stand out to him, but also post-playing career, now becoming a broadcaster and a daily talk show host on SiriusXM's Mad Dog Radio. This guy is a born entertainer, a born storyteller, and I'm so excited. And I hope you enjoy this conversation between me and Cody Decker.
Oh, wow. It has been a long time, my friend, a long time, but I've been following along and you're doing big things. I'm really proud of you. Cody Decker is on the podcast this week. And yeah, buddy, big media star now living in New York. I have to admit, I forgot that you're on the East Coast and I got our time zone messed up, but I'm here. I'm ready. For everybody who may not have bumped into you on every TV, I feel like every bar I walk into, I see your mug. But why don't you give us a little bit of the story of Cody Decker?
Well, that's a loaded question. It depends, I guess, on which era of my life you want to talk about. I mean,
do it all.
We'll do the quick recap version. I am a former professional baseball player. Played for 11 years professionally, 4 years before that at UCLA. That's where I met you during that 11-year process when you were there with San Diego Padres, of which that's where I cut my teeth for 7 of those 11 glorious years. And, you know, my time at the Padres, I mean, as up and down as it absolutely was, I mean, at the end of the day, I get to call myself a big leaguer because the Padres had no choice but to finally call me up for the shortest of cups of coffee. But at one point, man, it was a great time being there. I bounced around every other organization. And then one day I just, I had offers throughout my entire career to leave baseball because I did grow up with a theater background. I grew up with a film school background. I made a lot of, during my years playing, in fact, I was better known for making my stupid viral videos than I ever was playing on the field, which is really unfortunate. If you check the numbers, they really weren't bad. But at the end of the day, everyone wanted me to move into the media sphere. And I knew that was going to be my realm. I just didn't know what it was going to look like. And eventually I got an opportunity that I simply couldn't refuse. I retired in 2019. And ever since then, I've bounced around just about everywhere. I started at what is now called Odyssey. At the time, it was Entercom. I started with Odyssey. I'm still doing things with Odyssey, but after years with them, I eventually started doing work for Stadium, MLB Network, and to the point where I was moved to New York to be the co-host for the Carton Show for Fox Sports 1, and did that for a full year, then signed a deal with SiriusXM, where I'm on Mad Dog Sports Radio daily, noon to 3. You catch me and my co-host, Michelle Beadle. Michelle is an absolute rock star, badass, love working with her. It's just, I am a spoiled, rotten little child who constantly works with incredibly talented people. And somehow I just kind of come along for the ride. And here I am now talking with you, my man, Wayne.
Hey, dude, I am, as I said before we went on here, I'm just so proud of you.
Thanks,
we
man.
met, you were a minor league guy. And I've talked about this a lot in like my socials and whatever. I was fortunate with the Padres. I had a lot of support from the organization to really invest in and help define the brand of the Padres. But part of that was helping the players, especially the minor league players, understand what we were doing at the big league level so that when they did get there, they would be ready and excited about the cameras being in their faces and all the things that was never an issue for you. And we met and we instantly hit it off as to like, I knew, I told you from the minute we met, I'm like, you're gonna be a media darling. This world was made for you. And when you're ready, you let me know, and what you've gone off to do. I literally laugh every time I walk into like a bar somewhere, and I would look up and there you were, and I'm like, it's unbelievable, man. So congratulations on everything.
Thanks, man. It's been honest to God a blast. And at the end of the day, like it's not lost on me just how lucky I am to be in this spot. Guys that have played, Hall of Famers don't get the opportunities to do the things that I've fortunately been able to do. And I'm not a Hall of Famer. I'm a member of the Jewish Sports Hall of Fame in Los Angeles, California.
Wow.
But
Okay.
Slow down. There's a very small amount of us.
Mazel tov.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a line from the movie Airplane. Do you have any light reading? How about this pamphlet of famous Jewish sports stars? I'm on the pamphlet, baby. I made it.
You made it. And honestly, that was like an amazing story to follow along with too, with Team Israel in the World Baseball Classic. I really enjoyed that journey. I followed it through your eyes, right? Like I followed you, and then I got engaged, and you're an amazing storyteller, and I think that was part of the sort of allure, right, of this team of guys coming together around this. Like you said, there's not a lot of us, but here we are, and we're mighty, and we're having a heck of a time, and we're gonna have some fun with this.
Yeah, that run in 2017 with Team Israel. I mean, it was a special group of guys, and the reason why it was such a special group of guys, everyone was so focused because like, oh, it's just a bunch of Jewish baseball players, but the truth was, none of us were really identifying as that. Like, yeah, we were all Jewish. It was something very cool that kind of connected us all together. But all of us had a very similar career path. There was about 10 guys on that team who'd all been to the big leagues, but were all kind of castaways that were just told weren't good enough. There was me. Yep. There was Nate Fryman, former Padre as well. Mm-hmm. Another guy, similar situation. Hell, Nate Fryman and I that year ended up being teammates together with the Red Sox organization. I after I left the Padres, I go and I joined the Kansas City Royals.
Yep.
I play throughout all camp. I make the team. They fly me to Kansas City to then notify me that instead they don't want to make a 40-man roster move. Your car is out in the parking lot. Go ahead and drive up to Omaha. And I'm like, well, this sucks.
Stop it.
Yeah, it was brutal. I was told I made the team, and then I was told we changed our mind. And then so I drive to Omaha, and I get there, and then I find out I'm not in the lineup. So I'm like, what's going on? They're like, hey, we might have made a mistake signing you. We sold you a bill of goods that honest to God aren't here. We have a prospect that needs to play here, and we're looking to trade you. And I just said, I'm like, it's April 1st. Like,
wow.
Like who makes trades on April 1st? And he just goes like, listen, we've gotten a few bites and we'll let you know. 2 weeks later, they call me in the office. The Rockies traded for me, and the Rockies only rented me. It was a short-term thing on their end. They didn't tell me this, but at the time, Daniel Descalso had a broken hand. They needed somebody to put in AAA that they had a bunch of prospects at AAA that they didn't want to start the clock on. So they were like, let's grab Decker, put him here, and if anyone else goes down, we call Decker up. At the time, sounded like a sweet deal, except Daniel Descalso came back in 14 days, which guess what? Someone's out of a job and has to go home. So I'm sitting there on it like May 1st going like, what the hell just happened? I was in the big leagues 30 days ago, and now I can't get picked up by anybody. To the point a whole month goes away, and it's now the middle of June, and the Red Sox were like, hey, would you be willing to go to AA? And I just said, like, dude, I haven't been in AA in like at this point, like 7 years. But I'm like, dude, I'll do it because I can't get back to the big leagues from my couch. So yeah. And I get there and I see Nate Fryman's on the team. I'm like, let's go, Nate Fryman, my ex-teammate. So me and Nate, we had a very similar year, and then we're playing against the Toronto Blue Jays team, and their catcher is Ryan Lavarnway. And Twitch, I look at Ryan, I'm like, Ryan, what are you doing here? And he's like, what am I doing here? What are you two doing here? Like, and it turns out all three of us had the exact same thing happen to us. Wow. All three of us signed with a new team. All three of us got traded within like a week of the season, got a bill of goods that just weren't us. And then we all ended up in the Eastern League, and all three of us were like, it might be time to hang them up. It's clear that like these guys like just don't want. And it just happened to be happenstance that the World Baseball Classic was coming up again, and I didn't want to play. Nate didn't want to play, and I got a phone call from someone from the organization that talked me into it. He's like, and also if you could talk Lavarnway and Fryman. So I started talking with them, and we kind of started all kind of getting on the idea, because I was thinking maybe at the time, it was 2016, I'm going like, maybe I am going to hang him up. Maybe this is going to be it. Maybe I didn't enjoy that season at all. There was so much business and just, I already felt like I had already been kind of a victim of the business at that point. And I was just like, you know what, maybe I shouldn't do this anymore. I went and joined the Israel team again and had the time of my life, to the point where
it was amazing.
Yeah, it ain't time to go yet. And I ended up playing 4 more years. And
Wow.
I'm very, very proud of that experience. But that was a group of guys that truly, like, it was an island of misfit toys. We were labeled 200 to 1 to like even win a game in the tournament, and we were laughing like, dude, you guys don't realize, we get it. You guys all have the stars.
Sure.
We're the ball players, and we're going to kick your ass. And the best part was we did. We're in Korea. We beat Korea in Korea. Then they're like, well, that was a fluke. It's not going to happen again. We go play Chinese Taipei. We beat them by 14. Then we're like, well, you're going to play the Netherlands. Good luck against Andrelton Simmons and all of these stars over here. We beat their asses too, and we go sweep in Korea and go to Japan. Then we're playing Cuba. They're like, well, Cuba's a powerhouse. They won't do anything. We beat Cuba. Oh, and all of a sudden the narrative starts shifting. All of a sudden we go from, you guys don't belong here. We're like, yeah, but you're really just the USA B team. And to which we all looked at each other like, you think that the U.S. team would look at any one of us and even claim that we're American, let alone eligible for this team?
That is unbelievable. Yeah, the USAB team.
Like seriously? Yeah, go ask Buck Showalter, the manager of Team USA, how much he was between. Should I go with Mookie Betts or Cody Decker?
I think that was one of the things that I really enjoyed about you, the entire and continue to enjoy, is like an amazing self-awareness and just not taking yourself too seriously, like accomplishing goals, but at the same time being like, I know that there were roadblocks that stopped me from getting to where I wanted to go. And some of it's out of my control. Some of it was in my control, but I'm going to laugh and have a good time the entire way, no matter what.
You know what? And I'll never forget when I really learned it. Like, it wasn't my first year. I had a blast my first year. I ended up winning like the MVP of the league. And honestly, I was told out the gate, like, to my scouts' credit and to a couple of front office guys with the Padres' credit at the time, they were not quiet exactly on what I had to do. Forget to make the big leagues, to just not get fired, because I was a 22nd round senior sign. I was, I led the nation in home runs my senior year of college, but at the end of the day, I'm a 5'11" right-handed power hitter who bats right, throws right, not a lot of speed. I can hit and I can play multiple positions, but honestly, I play 3 positions well.
Right.
I play 1 position great. I'm 5'11". You don't want me at first base. You want me somewhere else. I can catch, but you have better catchers.
Yep.
I can play right and left. I'm maybe on your roster, I'll probably be the 7th best outfielder, but yes, I can play right and left.
Sure.
You put me at third, but you're going to have a better third baseman than me. I will be the best first baseman you have on your roster, bar none, unquestionably. Problem, I'm 5'11" and right-handed. Yeah, I get it. I'm a tough sell. But at the end of the day, the ball went over the fence 30 times every single year, and that's what kept me in the Padre organization. And, it took me breaking every record the Padres had in the minor league level for them to even call me up, of which I didn't play, but it was really fun to be there.
Yeah, no, I remember that day. I remember you coming up. I mean, for those of us on the business side, we had gotten to know you well because you had done some media stuff with us, and we're obviously the Jeff Francoeur video was incredible. I mean, that put you on our radar. We knew you, but we were like, this guy's editing content in the minors that is just incredible and compelling and engaging and great stories. And we just started like, all right, what are we going to do with this guy? And I was asking the baseball ops guys, hey, what are you going to do with this guy? I've got plans for him.
Dude, full transparency. Like, I don't know if you've ever told anybody this, but I'll never forget it. After the season, it must've been 3 days after the season ended when I got called up. You call me and you're like, hey, Cody, so the show, here's something that never really happens. Like, so one day I went on, there was a show there called Padres Social Hour.
Yep.
And one day I went on it because, you guys had followed me for so many
Yep.
years, and a lot of the fans had followed me too. And it was a really cool thing. And
Yep.
one day I go on and I kind of made fun of the host. I'm like, this is the easiest job in the world. I could host this easily. He's like, you want to host it? I'm like, I'll host it tomorrow. I showed up the next day after BP and I hosted the show in full gear, in full baseball uniform.
It was amazing.
And it went really shockingly well. And to the point where after the season ended, you gave me a call 3 days afterwards saying, hey, so here's the deal. I want you to retire and take over that show and then do the pregame show for the Padres. And I just paused. I'm like, awesome. But I just got to the big leagues.
Hey, I got to take my shot.
Yeah, I'm like, I just got here. And now you want me to just say, okay, I'm done? Like, that's like, no.
You were like, no, like, I'm a baseball player, man. Like, I want to play baseball. And I was like, I know, but like, this could be cool too.
And trust me, in retrospect, if I knew how 2016 was going to go, I would have said yes.
Yeah, that was, it was for me, I think one of the important things is identifying talent, right? In my business and on the baseball side too. And you see it, you're like, you know what? I'm going to take a shot here. I don't know where his head's at, but if his head is anywhere like, hey, I accomplished it and I'm ready to like capitalize on it into a different world, I want to be the first one. And because, there was Tony Gwynn Jr., if you go back and look, he started his broadcast career in LA. And he started doing pre and post up for the Dodgers. And we reached out. We were like, hey, man, like, we're right here. And, it wasn't even something that had come up. So I was like, these are moments where you learn to make sure you have those conversations that people know there's an interest because, as much as people think professional athlete, like confident, all these things, they are like, well, if they wanted me, they would have reached out, and it's like, I wanted you to know like, hey, whatever you're thinking as you're weighing things, this is an option, and no slight to your baseball abilities, but
no, I should have said yes. Looking back, like I should have absolutely said yes. But.
Well, the good news is that we followed along, and you've continued to do great things, and you've had a great run there, and you're having an incredible run on the media side. The whole impetus of this project for me is to give back, right? It's and you had it too. Through your career, through your life, we've had the ability to interact with amazing people and learn incredible things. But as a young person, bumping into a Cody Decker, right, or me, or somebody else that's been on and go, hey, I'd love to just know what their thoughts were at this thing. And so that's why I started this project, was to bring those to life and to share those stories. So what is that lessons from sports for you, that something that you've taken from the game that, has helped you fulfill, find happiness in what you do every day?
I mentioned those first 2 years, like when I was in pro ball, I took it very seriously. And I remember specifically my second full season, my first full season, I should say. It was my second season, my first full season. I was in Lake Elsinore in high A.
Okay.
And I very, very much remember I did not enjoy myself. I didn't enjoy playing baseball there. It wasn't there. It wasn't the fans. Like, the fans there were great. My teammates were killer. The organization was great. Like, that wasn't it. I just didn't enjoy the game. I didn't enjoy playing. I didn't enjoy like the day-to-day grind, because frustrations would boil over. I see teammates' frustrations boil over. I'm like, that the grind of a full season really is a different kind of beast. And I remember walking away from that season, even though the numbers were good and they weren't as good as I wanted them to be, but the numbers were great. But I was just looking like, I don't think I had fun, like, really at all this season. I didn't find the season fun. And it worried me that all of a sudden baseball wasn't fun. So the next year I started in San Antonio, which was a place that didn't have the best reputation as far as stadiums go. It was kind of a old, beaten down stadium, and if you're a power hitter like I am, the ball doesn't fly there. But I went there, and it was the same grouping of guys who I loved, with a couple of veteran guys. So we had Kyle Blanks that played with us that year. We had Kyle Phillips that played with us that year. Kyle Phillips was just in the big leagues with the Blue Jays, and he just got sent down. And I remember looking at him like, why are you in Double-A with us down here? Like, Kyle, I kind of understood. Kyle Blanks, I understood, because Kyle had been in the big leagues, but Kyle's been hurt at this point for like 3 years and needed to get at bats. And so we knew Kyle Blanks wasn't going to be there long, but Kyle Phillips was weird because he was just in the big leagues, and he was in big league camp the entire time. And then I watched him kind of go approaching the team and how he was going about the things and how he was working so hard to just make this not just fun for him, but for everyone in the clubhouse. And I just remember watching him interacting with fans on a road game. And because here was the thing, I never said anything to fans. I would keep my head down and just like, be that old stupid college athlete sitting there like getting all fired up on deck, like, yeah, I got this guy. And then I watched Kyle one day. A fan was just yelling at him, just right behind him in his ear, just screaming, "You'll never make it to the show!" And then finally, right before he hits, he just turns around. He's like, "I've spent 2 years in the show. How do you like me now? Like, what do you got?" And he's like, you live in Midland, Texas, and you're heckling me on a 2 p.m. on a Thursday. Do you not have a job? Like, what do you do? He's like, also, you bought that ticket? You contributed to my salary. Thanks. He's like,
my God.
And then he just pauses. He's like, now you sit here and you keep your mouth shut and enjoy daddy hit a double for you. And then he goes up there in the first pitch, he hits a double. And I'm just on deck laughing hysterically.
Oh my God.
Just like, I didn't know you can do this. I didn't know this could be fun. Then all of a sudden, I start getting into it. Then the next game, that same fan shows up, going all over Kyle Phillips. Kyle hits a homer. As he's rounding the bases, he's looking directly at the fan, hits home plate, and just goes, a huge, big old, like grinning smile. And the whole crowd around that fan laughed their asses off and pointing at the guy, making fun of him. So the guy then thinks he's going to get one over. He's going to instead yell at me as I'm coming up to the plate and I'm stepping. Here's what he clearly didn't know at the time. It was the first month of the season. I was leading all of professional baseball in home runs. I'm having a blast. I think I had like 11 home runs in April to start my first run in Double-A. I was just killing it. And then I remember I come up to the plate, first pitch, bomb. And as I'm rounding third base, Kyle Phillips, while this fan's in my ear, Kyle Phillips runs out of the dugout, down the line with me, yelling, "Say something to him, Dick! You gotta say something to him as he cross the plate!" So I cross home plate, I hit home plate, and I just do like what was the bartender's name from the Love Boat who used to always like do the long points?
Oh my God. Yes.
So I cross home plate and I just do the whole ha, and I hold the pose looking at him. The whole crowd loses it, and I come in, we're all just hugging, having a time.
Awesome.
And then from that point on, I was just like, I changed my perspective to the game. I was just like, listen, I'm in a spot where I'm going to be screwed in this industry, in baseball specifically. And that's okay. Like, I love what I'm doing. And I'm pretty lucky to be here, but I'm going to make this as fun as I humanly can. And that was kind of what became my goal from that day forward. I'm like, the moment this is back to being a job, I don't want to do it. And so I made sure that baseball remained fun. Even the years where I was living in my car, even the years where I was doing this, that, like, I made sure that there was a reason to be at that field, and that reason had to be joy. And since then, I've done a decent job of letting that kind of encapsulate the rest of my life. Yeah, I have my missteps, but that's honestly what I learned. And I don't think I ever told Kyle Phillips, but really it was something I learned from Kyle Phillips in 2011, right before I broke my ankle.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's a gret lesson though. Listen, as somebody on the business side, I get it, right? Like when it stops being fun, right? Like we left the Padres in 2020, Katie and I, when we started Cuento, but it wasn't that it wasn't fun. It was, we had set out to do what we wanted to do. And that was fun. Like the whole challenge of what it was a team that wasn't winning a lot of baseball games. How do you take on the challenge of trying to make the experience fun and sell tickets and put people in seats, even with a team that's not getting over 70 wins? How do you do that? How do you take on that challenge? And then the next phase was going to be a team that, hopefully went on to compete for World Series championships. And that's a different challenge, but a challenge that we were like, that's not as challenging. Like that's something different. And we don't want to do that. I love manufacturing, creating and telling stories and taking a guy who's in Double-A and he's doing really cool stuff, and then sharing that story of this guy with fans, that they start to engage with him and start following this individual player, that when he finally does climb the mountaintop, that maybe it is 100 fans that are like so fired up for that individual that it means even more. It means more to the team. I love that part of the job. And then it was like, okay, now we have a thing, but let's go do it. Let's go do it everywhere. Let's go try to, but you're right. Like if it's not fun, and that's a core, kind of DNA thing for, I think you and I both have, is like, if we're not having fun, then what are we doing here?
Yeah, and as far as my baseball career, I look back at it with nothing but fondness.
Yeah.
Bad timing, but for the most part, fondness. Like you mentioned, fun. Like you were there that 2015 year. Like that's when I got called up. Unfortunately, and I don't think it was one particular fault. Just for whatever reason, there was a cocktail in that clubhouse that simply didn't work. And on paper, come on paper, that
Won
should
the
have happened.
offseason. Yeah.
Yeah, we go out and get the Uptons, we go out and get Kimbrel, we get Kemp, and on paper, this should be the greatest team ever. The Padres have arrived, and it was just a disaster. I remember being in that. I got up to the big leagues, and I get up to that club, and I've never been around a clubhouse of more guys that hated each other more than that group of guys. And it wasn't that any of them were bad guys; just for some reason, this grouping of people doesn't work together.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that was my big league experience. I walked into a bit of a hornet's nest of a clubhouse. And, sometimes that happens.
By the way, that happens in business, right?
All the time.
It's okay. It doesn't make you bad people. It's just this isn't a fit. And that's okay too. And I think that's one of the things that I've learned along the way is that like self-awareness is key, right? You have incredible self-awareness of like, okay, this might not be a fit for me, right? And that's okay. Or situational awareness to look at other people and go, hey, this might not be a fit for you. And, sometimes they listen, sometimes they don't, but at least to start to realize you can start to get the feel of like what's working, what's not, or, hey, there's something really strange going on in this room and I'm going to like try to stay out of the way.
There was just something haunted in there that year. I don't know what it was, but something was haunted down in that clubhouse.
Yeah, it's wild. I remember that off season was crazy. It was my first full off season with the team, and it was just one after another after another. I mean, we did that press conference. It was pretty wild, and like the whole baseball where we went from begging cameras to come to spring training, right? And I had put plans in place where we were doing the documentation and sharing the footage with all the TV stations because they refused to send cameras, right? So that's when we started to like build our own highlight reels and send them to the news station so that there was coverage to the next year being full. Like ESPN is camped out. It's just like there's everybody you could imagine lined up and it was pretty wild. But yeah, it's another great point. All right. So we're going to transition phase 3 of the podcast, and section 3 is a place where you've been as a player. You feel it. It's the hot seat. It is like rapid fire questions, but we know you said it even at every phase of the game was just like, how do I not get fired today? And we joke on the business side that when I got the job, when you get the jobs, like, congratulations, you got hired to one day get fired. And I actually avoided that, which was incredible. But it is the fact of the business that at some point it will end, and that is okay. It's part of the ride. And so this is the hot seat. So rapid fire questions. Favorite teammate you ever had?
Rocky Gale or Nate Fryman, one of the two.
Why?
Oh man, that's tough because how do I see? There's like an interchangeable list of 5 guys, but the 3 names that immediately pop up is Rocky Gale.
Yeah,
and the reason why is because me and Rocky were together for so many years, and we just kind of got each other and appreciate each other's humor. Nate Fryman, because me and Nate Fryman had more fun debating history and the early colonial structure of the United States than anybody I've ever done that with ever. We would literally sit there and play dominoes together and talk about the early works of Thomas Jefferson compared to Alexander Hamilton, and we really, really had fun doing that.
The things that happen in a dugout.
that doesn't happen at a clubhouse, but that happens when you have Nate Fryman and myself in the room. And I gotta say, the third one, I'm having a brain fart for some reason right now. What's wrong with me? Catcher. One of the greatest men who ever lived. Catcher with the Padres forever. Backup catcher. He was in the brawl with the Dodgers. We ended up trading him. We ended up not trading him. He gets sent down. He gets taken off the roster and gets picked up by the Dodgers after that big brawl with the Dodgers. He's the head of player development for the Pirates now. What is wrong with me?
Oh my God.
He went to the big leagues with the Cubs after he was done with us. Went with Ricky Renteria when Ricky was the head coach.
I remember.
What's wrong with me?
I'm going to edit this. I'm going to edit, or I'm leaving it in.
Leave it all in so he can yell at me. Why am I forgetting my friend's name?
Oh my God. This is amazing. I love this. And you had that too. And what is it?
It shouldn't be happening. I'm really upset.
We'll come back to it.
Nope. I'm just Googling because my mind doesn't work anymore.
We're going to do this. It's for
Padres
real right now.
Catchers 2013.
Okay. That was before me.
Everett Cabrera did not play catcher. Google, what's wrong with you? I know a lot of things are wrong in my brain, but I know for a fact. God, I'm so mad at myself. John Baker.
Okay, John. Okay,
John Baker is one of the greatest. Forget teammates. One of the greatest humans I have ever been in a clubhouse with. We were only teammates like in the clubhouse together for maybe a month, and I think I learned more from John Baker in that month than I did from every collective coach, manager combined. Yeah. Like truly, like I just loved any second I was around John Baker, whether it was talking baseball, talking catching, or just playing the guitar in the clubhouse together, or just picking up some like Pearl Jam tunes that we would play together. Like there are no words in the English language to describe how much I learned from that guy in such a short amount of time.
Just didn't get his name.
I just forgot his name. Because why would I remember a name of a guy? I know everything about his life. I know where he works. I know when he worked there. I know he went to Cal. Like
you had it all down. It was amazing. It happens to me. We're getting older.
I forgot John Baker's name.
As you talked about, you had this moment of time in the big leagues. What's the clearest memory you have of that time?
The clearest memory I have of the big leagues is interesting because I only got one start, but it was really great. I'll never forget it because I didn't know I was getting the start. At this point, I'd already been up for like 3.5 weeks, and I hadn't played. I had at that point, I think 4 at bats in those 3.5 weeks, and they were always against like closer. Like Cody, was the last time you had an at bat? 3 weeks ago. Well, Madison Bumgarner's got a no hitter in the 8th. Good luck. And I'm like, He's like, you've faced Madison before. I'm like, yeah, and I have good numbers, but I haven't seen a pitch, and I'll give it a shot. That at bat actually sticks out in my mind because a lot of aspects of it I hated because I went up there facing 2 things I remember. This is one of them. Madison Bumgarner facing him live in that game, and because he had a no hitter in the 8th. I was happy to take the at bat. I was really unhappy how the at bat unfolded because he started me 3-0, and I was furious, going like, well, I can't swing 3-0 in the 8th inning while he's got a no hitter. He's going to throw a strike right down the middle, and I'm going to have to take it. So this sucks because if I swing at this, and God forbid I get my first major league hit that's a home run or something, and I've homered off Madison twice in the past, I was just like, it's going to start a brawl, and great. That's where I'm at. Like, so all this goes through my head in this 5-second period in the batter's box. I'm like, all right, just let this perfect fastball go by. Perfect fastball goes by. I'm like, okay, get ready for this next pitch. And then he throws me another fastball, and I foul it back. And I was furious because I'm like, oh, yeah, I hit that pitch. That was the one pitch you had to hit. I'm like, all right, he's not going to throw you another fastball. Madison knows you. He knows not to throw you another fastball. Get ready for a slider. And I never do that. I never, ever get off the fastball. A foul tip into the glove. So mad at myself. The one time in my career that I got off a fastball from Madison Bumgarner and he threw me a fastball. I was so mad. The other time was at Dodger Stadium. My one major league start. I'll never forget it because at the time, I wasn't kidding when I said I lived in my car. It was the 2013 season in Tucson when I went to AAA. I had no money. And you know how the minor league system was back then. This wasn't the Padres. This was just the system itself
at the time.
So how it worked was since San Antonio and AA and Tucson were pretty decently far apart, they wouldn't let me drive from San Antonio to Tucson. So they said, you have to ship your car. Unfortunately for me, that's out of pocket and I have no money. So I had to basically use all of my last paycheck to ship my car, which wasn't going to get there for 2 weeks. The team only pays for your housing for 3 days, which is at a hotel. So after those 3 days, I had to pay out of pocket for a hotel trying to find a place to live. I am now in negative dollars in my bank account. Once my car got there, I basically packed in and lived in that car for as long as I humanly can. And
Wow.
it was just kind of a brutal thing. But during that time, during the off seasons, I gave a lot of hitting lessons, a lot of lessons to little kids, and every odd job under the sun I did. I Uber drove when I had to. I bartended. I was a bouncer. I ran a traveling trivia show that honestly I made most of my money doing trivia nights in LA bars and theaters. But I also had a good rotation of kids that I worked with on hitting, catching, you name it. And there was this one dad I got very close to. We became buddies, became drinking buddies. Like we would hang out. And then when I got the call that I was going to start, I immediately called him like, I'm starting tonight at Dodger Stadium. You better be there. Wow. And he just pauses like, I can't, I have a meeting. And I just paused for like 10 seconds. I am starting at Dodger Stadium tonight. You better be there. And I just hung up the phone. Didn't say a word to him. That was it. That's all I did. Inning 3 ends with a play at first base. Grab it. First baseman takes the ball in, and I'll get another ball and I'll throw this ball in the crowd or something. And as I'm running in, I look up in the crowd, and Dodger Stadium is packed. And I don't need to tell you how many people are at Dodger Stadium. Even when people are like no one's at the game. Yeah, they are. They're stuck in the parking lot. It's very hard to get into Dodger Stadium. But even when Dodger Stadium's empty, there's 35,000 people at Dodger Stadium when it's empty. Yep. So there was at this point probably 40,000 people there, and the bottom level just completely packed. But somehow, out of pure just luck or kismet or whatever you want to say, I look up and I actually see him. He's on the first base side, and he's at like the top row of the field level, and he's just like, Dak, and I don't hear him say Dak. I just can make out he's doing Dak. And I look at him, and I just go like this with the ball, and I flip underhand the ball up. Now, when you flip a ball underhand up at any distance, it's lofty. So I don't expect to hit him, but it's not in my head. I see him, I toss him the ball, and I'll never forget he just reaches up and catches it perfectly like 20 rows up. And I'll never forget going like, how did I do that? How did I hit that target so perfectly? And he caught it and held the pose. Like that's in my memory, he held the pose the way like Luke holds it in the Star Wars poster for like a prolonged amount of time. Yeah. It probably wasn't that, but in my mind, he held it forever. And he's still there now holding the ball.
That's amazing. Hey, that's a great story. Like, and it, those moments when you reach mountaintops and you get to places, it's like you look around and it's like, that's why I asked that question, because there are those crystallized memories. There's only a few and they stay with you forever. And it's pretty amazing that he was able to make it there. I love that.
Yeah. I don't know why, but that's like, when I think of my big league time, the coolest thing that happened for whatever reason, that was like something that was just so cool. And it was a moment not for anybody else. It was just like a moment my buddy and I just kind of had.
Amazing.
And it was cool.
Worst job you've ever had? You just listed a bunch. Worst one.
Man, bouncing.
Bouncing.
The worst job I ever had was bouncing.
In
LA, this club called South. There were fights all the time that I had to go and break up. And if you're a bouncer in LA, you cannot throw a punch no matter what, unless you're being seriously physically attacked.
Yeah.
It was the worst job I ever had. I had to break up plenty of fights, which means a fight break. When you see, listen, I don't want to fight anybody. Nobody wants. Anybody that wants to fight people, there's something wrong with you.
Yep.
But the job is, a fight breaks out, I have to throw myself in the middle of it, and and I would often wear punches just trying to break up the thing or tackling people. The worst job I ever had, bar none, was bouncing at that club. And I remember it was in an article once from MLB.com about it, like while I was doing it. And I mentioned it like 5 times in hope that some of the Padres would see it and be like, oh yeah, we got to stop letting Cody do this. It was like all part of my plan, thinking they'll see this and they won't want me in harm's way anymore.
No.
But instead they were like, no, keep doing that.
It's a great story, Cody. Keep bouncing. Those are great stories. It's great for clicks.
You keep rolling over at Roadhouse. Don't worry about it.
All right, you're a West Coast guy. Now living on the East Coast or West Coast?
That's not a fair question.
Well, I'm an East Coast guy and I can answer the question.
It's not about coast. It's got to be locations. If you're telling
me
we're
going New York or LA?
If you're giving me New York or LA, I'll answer that question.
Okay, go ahead.
By the slimmest of margins, New York.
Wow.
Here's why, though.
Okay.
Here's why. I've had 2 years now living in New York where I've really figured this out.
Okay.
They're both amazing cities, but they're amazing cities for the exact opposite reasons. Everything I love about New York, I hate about Los Angeles. Everything I love about Los Angeles, I hate about New York. And there's very little in the middle of that Venn diagram. Like the things that are in that middle of that Venn diagram is you want to do anything at any given moment, both these places are it. You want like nightlife, it's there. You want great restaurants, food of any kind, it's there. It's just you'll never be bored here. You have to work to be bored in these two places. The weather here is so unbearable. I simply do not understand how somebody came across across the sea and said, let's build a city on this island. It makes no sense to me that was a decision that was made.
Yeah.
The weather in LA is so much better. The people in New York, I love so much more than the people in Los Angeles. It's not even close.
Yeah.
And it's not big. People are always like, oh, people in New York are rude. No, they're not. They're honest and direct.
Honest.
Thank you. Thank you.
I
Thank
grew
you.
up in Boston. They're the same way. There's no filter. It's just straight at you.
I haven't had someone be honest and direct in me in Los Angeles in 30 years, 37 years of life. Pass. And in fact, there's a line from this movie, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, that I always paraphrase, and it's a line written by Shane Black where he's like, you know how awful it's like somebody took the United States from the East Coast and shook it, and all the normal people were able to hold on.
That's pretty good. I go the other way. So I grew up on the East Coast, and I would choose San Diego over
I get it.
Anywhere. It's amazing. I tell everybody Boston was a great place to be from, and San Diego is a great place to call home. But I love New York is great. I love New York. I would choose New York over LA as well.
Yeah. That being said, like ask me again in December, and my answer is going to be Los Angeles because I want to go out and golf very badly.
Yeah, no, it's the weather. I'm a weather snob, and so I went Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Miami to San Diego. I was escaping snow at all costs. I needed to. It's not my jam. All right, last rapid fire question for on the broadcast side. What has surprised you most about being in that business?
You know what? It's funny you asked that question. The people. And I know a lot of people will immediately think that the people, when I refer to that, is like the people that are bad in this industry. And yeah, there's plenty of bad apples in the industry, like any other industry. But believe it or not, I've been very spoiled. I've been very lucky to have worked with the people that I've gotten to work with. Like Craig Carton is the reason I moved out to New York City. Craig Carton is family to me now. He's closer to me than most of my family. Like he's like my actual brother now. Yeah. Like I've learned more from this guy. His sage-like wisdom and thoughts. He changed my life, and like I am so lucky I got to work with him. And then to go from Craig Carton directly to Michelle Beadle, who is, to say, the easiest and most fun person to work with every day. Like I'm not saying this as hyperbole or as a joke. Like I look forward to going to that studio every single day. Like I really can't wait to be there. Yeah. And I'm almost disappointed when it's time to leave. Like it's like I am just the luckiest guy in the world with the people I've gotten to work with. Even though on Odyssey, like I work with a guy named Rob Brown on our dumb gambling show for BetMGM. I love that I work with this guy. Like I have been so ungodly spoiled with the very best people that I've gotten to work with. People at MLB Network, people like, Xavier Scruggs and Lauren Gardner and all these people that I work with on the regular. Like I don't have a single negative thing to say about just about everyone I've worked with. And, I know not a lot of people get to say that. So hopefully I can keep that streak alive.
That's amazing. All right. Last thing before we can get you out of here. So the whole concept of this is providing value. Got two questions for you. There's like one on the downside and then one on the upside. One on the downside is, would you change anything about your career?
Yes. Yes, I would.
Okay.
Do you mean my current career or do you mean my baseball
career? Your whole career at this point.
I would have signed with the Chicago Cubs or the Los Angeles Dodgers instead of the Kansas City Royals. Okay. That was a mistake. I would have signed back with the Red Sox. My biggest professional career and baseball wise mistake was not signing back with the Red Sox in 2017, which is I was talked into signing with the Brewers. Just like we talked about earlier, just wasn't a fit. Simply was not a fit and did not work. And I should have gone back to the organization that I had a great rapport with and I knew did work with me.
Yeah.
That was probably a downside as far as career-wise in this realm. Yes.
Okay.
I would have my first show after retiring would have been a different show.
Okay. All right. Okay. I got you.
I would not have done a show with my ex-wife. How about that? I really regret that. That was a mistake.
Okay.
I strongly suggest none of you do it.
I knew where you were going there, but
I might as well just spell it out. I would not do that again.
Okay. Good to know. All right. Last one. We're going to end on a high note. What's the best part of your day?
Best part of my day is when I walk through my door in my apartment every single time, and my dog is on my couch and he doesn't get up to greet me. He immediately just lifts his arm and leg up and expects me to run over to him and rub his belly, and I do.
Yeah,
It's my
amazing.
favorite. My favorite thing is when I walk through the apartment and my dog is there expecting belly rubs, and he always gets them. It's my favorite. Even if I'm in a bad mood, I'm like, how bad can it be?
What are we going to do?
Look at this guy. Come on.
I love that. That's a great answer. I love that. Dude, Cody, thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. As I said at the beginning, I'll say it again. I'm so proud of you. You had a plan. You went after it, man, and you're doing it. Like, I mean, there's a Mad Dog logo behind you right now. That's just wild. And I we talked about it. We knew what the future held for you, and you've made it a reality. So congratulations on everything. And thank you for everything.
Thank you. But no, thank you. And, thank you for being someone there so early on. Honestly, you were one of the first that really made me understand and believe that, yeah, this was a future for me. And for that, thank you, Wayne.
Yeah, dude. It's all good, man. All good. Thank you.